Go on. There we go. All right, we're live.
Awesome.
Welcome everyone to Office Hours. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. I know I missed the memo. I did not dress up. I apologize. But I love the dedication here. You've got a whole background. So explain to me who this is again, because I'm not sure.
This is it's all right. Every time I've worn this costume, I've had to explain to everyone who I am. But I am dressed up as Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China. So if anyone's seen the movie, it's like the best character ever. Played by the best actor of all time, Kurt Russell. So
there we go. One of my favorite things. Yeah. Every time we talk, I feel like
not really like the best like wig for what he actually looks like. But like, you know, I made an effort.
I think it's great. Immediately, just it was very different from your usual
look. It needs like a little bit
like
more like, I don't know. But yeah, you get the idea.
I do. Well, I love the dedication. Clearly I need to up my Halloween game, but we're excited to be on here today talking about all things social media for Office Hours.
Yes. So the floor is open. Anyone who has a question, if you have a question that you've been trying to get an answer to about social media, whether it be, you know, something simple, something more complex, something for your own content, for whatever, we are here to answer those questions and help you all out. In the meantime, we do have things that we're going to be talking about. So once we see a question pop in, we will go ahead and answer those. Yeah. But let's talk about, obviously, it's Halloween. We've got November coming up. Talk to us a little. Let's talk about like getting that content ready and reacting to kind of like the seasons that you're in.
Yeah, I think seasonal content is such a fun way to help yourself stay inspired, especially if you're running your own socials, right? You don't have a big marketing team. I would always just advise people to try to be as personable about your content as possible. So if you're not a big designer, if you feel like fancy graphics are beyond your scope, that is totally fine. But I would always encourage people to, instead of just posting the Happy Halloween generic graphic, it just feels like it's a little bit of a waste of a post, right? Like everyone's posting it. There's a million of them. Maybe you get a few likes on it, but no one's really going to sit and engage with that. So I've already seen a bunch of people actually just having fun with their Halloween content. I've seen a couple people with like the sheet ghosts, you know, just taking photos in their office and saying Happy Halloween that way. I've seen definitely a few videos. I'm going to give Tom Bickett a shout out on the Cash to Close team, because he did a whole Batman video today that just had me giggling at first, like 8 in the morning as I'm checking my social media. So those are the types of things that I think if you're going to do seasonal content, that's the best way to do it, either by adding real value. So if you're talking to, you know, mortgage and real estate topics and you're saying, here are seasonal tips, here are end of year budgeting tips, here are home maintenance things that you should be paying attention to. That's super valuable. But then also with holiday stuff, either making it really personable or just having fun so that it's entertaining instead of just being generic. Because I think that just really easily gets drowned out. And that's where, you know, it's not a bad thing, but it's just, if you're taking the same post as everyone else and saying Happy Halloween and posting it, you might as well have just done something different or just skip it, you know, because I just don't know that it really helps you.
Yeah. I mean, it's really easy to just put like a stock photo picture of a pumpkin with some leaves around it and say Happy Halloween from, you know, insert mortgage company here. I've done those posts in the past. But people are so much more interested in, you know, like if people at the office, if your LOs are dressed up for Halloween, like someone going around with the camera, with the phone and recording all of their costumes, you know, like, don't you want this on your social? Yeah. You know what I mean? So like going around and being like, so what do you dress up for Halloween? Or I'm like, there's so many like great ways to do a Halloween post that isn't just Happy Halloween from ABC Mortgage, you know?
I would say the next level, instead of just Happy Halloween, it's like just take a selfie or just take a photo of your office or like something, because that's more personable. So if you really just want to be basic and do the Happy Halloween thing, just don't use a graphic, use like a photo of you and your team. But then the next level, like you're saying, videos are great and they don't have to be hard. Like you're saying, just ask everyone in your office a question. Or I've seen so many fun videos of people doing like putting out a candy bowl and then like jump scaring people as they come up to get the candy, or like giving like Halloween puns and going up to each person in the office and saying like a Halloween joke that's really bad and then getting their reaction.
Hmm.
And I just think all of that is more entertaining, and it shows off more of your personality, both as like a team and a company. It just helps people be like, oh, they're fun, they're having fun with this content, I want to work with them, instead of
Hmm.
just that generic happy Halloween where it's like, okay, everyone's posting that. That doesn't tell me anything about you or your business or why I should work with you. It's just more junk to scroll by in my feed every day.
Exactly. I feel like, especially in the corporate space today, especially, is a lot of junk. Not
Yeah.
in the sense that there's just a lot of stuff, but a lot of stuff that is low quality. Um,
Yeah.
we talk about it all the time. It's like, who are you trying to reach with your content, and are you posting in a place where those people are, and are you posting the type of content that those people will engage with? Ideally, you should be answering yes to all three of those questions. Now, the success of each of those posts may vary, but you should at least be saying yes to all three of those. And if you feel like someone's going to engage with a post that's just a picture of a pumpkin saying happy Halloween, not so much. But if you've got, these like creative things that are using, your LOs, using your team, using your family, or talking about like you walking around with, your walk around with your phone today down your street and just show some of
Yeah.
the cool Halloween decorations, and talk about what it's like being in a neighborhood and being in a home in a neighborhood that's celebrating Halloween like they did back in the 90s and the 80s. Like,
Uh,
those are all that kind of nostalgia that you can play on there with a social post.
mhm.
um and say, look, if you're wanting to get some of this energy, if you want to get back into, if you want to kind of join a neighborhood like this, let's talk. Like, that's a
Yeah.
great way to leverage Halloween into what it is that you're trying to do.
I agree. And I think that's the easiest part. Just pull out your phone and talk about what you're doing, because that's at least relatable to be like, oh, you're going out trick or treating with your kids, just like maybe someone else is, and going, oh my gosh, cool costume. Oh my gosh, look at the neighborhood. It just gives people more insight into who you are beyond just like the professional piece of yourself you're putting up there. We always say, right? Like, social media is about building connections and kind of creating that relationship beyond who you are at your desk and the way you present yourself, because I think too many people default to being really professional, and nowadays it's kind of like, is that really going to win you business over someone else that you're more professional than they are? I don't think
Mhm.
so. I think it's, oh, I relate to you. Oh, I think you're funny. Oh, you helped me by sharing the video about this one specific loan program that I didn't know existed. So I reached out to you with the question about it. Like, it's being unique is what brings people to you, and being relatable. And that often ties into being vulnerable. And so I think sometimes people feel weird. They're like, oh, well, I feel safe at my desk and I feel okay putting that on the internet because I know it's good and I don't feel like I'm going to get rejected or made fun of or whatever. I'm like, but that's not what people care about. They want to see, your kid walking into someone else's house because you forgot to tell them not to go inside when they're trick or treating for the first time, or,
Mhm.
just like the cute things that make it like, oh, you're just like me. And yeah, maybe I would want to learn more about mortgages or whatever it is and talk to you about it. So yeah,
So
just
obviously
help.
today's, Halloween ends today.
Yep.
But I feel like we're still gonna see like costume posts over the next like week or so. I feel like
Oh
that's usually
yeah.
what we end up
And the
seeing.
weekend. I know some
Um,
people, it was like a half and half. Like, some people did last weekend and some people are doing this weekend because it was a midweek Halloween,
mhm.
but it's not over. So it's not too late.
Yeah,
That
plenty
doesn't
of
mean you
time.
have to get your picture up today. It can be tomorrow.
And a lot of the same things we're talking about also apply to November. When we get
Yeah.
into November and, you're talking about, you've got a month that is very much, I think, about, it's very much about family. We're coming into like that family season,
Mhm.
family, community, home, especially like wanting to have Thanksgiving in someone's home. Um, it's a lot of things that I think tie back to a lot of the emotional connections, emotional feelings people have about home ownership. So if we're talking about going into that season, now is kind of like these
These
last 3
last three
months,
months.
while maybe not like the best time for people to actually be buying, this is a good time to start marketing yourself because you can play on some of these feelings that people are having in this moment.
Totally. And if you start thinking about it now, I think that's the biggest thing I notice is especially with loan officers and real estate agents, you're busy, you're doing a million things. So social media maybe isn't your top priority, or it's something that you kind of do when you have time. And what I see happen is, especially with seasonal content, is people wait and then they're like, oh, next week is Thanksgiving. What am I going to post about it? And that's where you end up with the generic kind of like happy Thanksgiving post, because you're like, oh, I want to acknowledge it, but I've run out of time to be creative. So I always say, like, start now. It's the first of the month tomorrow. It's the perfect time to sit. I'm actually sharing a post, so sneak peek for anybody listening. There's going to be a quick post tomorrow about all the dates to save in November that I use for like a social calendar.
You froze.
Veterans Day is coming up. Thanksgiving is coming up. Am I frozen? Dang it.
You were for a second,
Ugh.
yeah.
Am I back?
You are now
Dang
back,
it.
yes.
Okay, where'd you lose me? What happened?
You're talking about
Okay.
I think you kind of like wrapped up your thought when you came back. So I
Okay,
think you're
good.
good.
Just being thoughtful about seasonal content. The more you can think about it in advance, the better it will go for you. So we're here to help with that. And I think we
Mhm.
talked about last week, Veterans Day, right? Maybe not just posting a single video on Veterans Day, but doing a series or talking about it not just on the day itself is going to help you stand out, because everyone's talking about it on the day. So that's just always my biggest advice is plan ahead, because I think a lot of people forget. And then that's where you get that generic content that doesn't really serve you. Whereas if you start thinking about it now, Veterans Day is in a week and a half, and some idea will probably come to you in that time.
Yeah, it always makes me think, a good rule of thumb might be when you go to make a post about a specific holiday, date, whatever, think to yourself, what should I make? And almost that first idea of what you could make, throw it out. Because that
Don't.
first idea is usually the the simplest, the most boring, flat version of a social post. Like you're saying, like for Veterans Day. Thank you to all the veterans. How many times are we going to see that in our social feeds on Veterans Day? But
Right.
instead, what if you shared a story about a veteran from your family and
Mhm.
what that means to you?
Yeah, or
That's
someone
like
you
so
know.
much like a really interesting story about a veteran from your family. Like that's or a
Ooh,
veteran that or your story.
yeah.
That's
Or a
so much
client that
more
you've helped
interesting and
for years.
personal. Yeah. Yeah, or especially if if you did a VA loan for someone, like tell that person's story.
Hmm.
There's so many more interesting ways to tackle these holidays than static image post, thank you veterans, and then just moving on. That feels like I talk sometimes about content that feels like you're just getting the content up to get it up. Like I just got to get this post up. Other
Hmm.
rather than a piece of content that feels specific, feels planned, feels purposeful. Those things are all like one of those things just says Happy Veterans Day. The other one shows what Veterans Day means to
Yeah.
you, to other people, and shows the impact of it. And the same goes with Thanksgiving. And the same goes with Christmas and Hanukkah and Halloween. All these holidays that we're coming up on now, there's so much opportunity to share, when we come up on Christmas, what was your favorite Christmas gift as a kid? What was like, tell me about, like, a Christmas that maybe you didn't get the thing that you wanted, but tell me about the most memorable Christmas that you ever
Hmm.
had, the most memorable Thanksgiving that you ever had. Like, those things connect with people, not,
Yeah. I
"It's
think.
Thanksgiving, hit me up for a loan."
Right. And I think what everything you're saying has in common is emotion. It's tying into emotion and getting people to feel a certain way instead of just acknowledging, like you're saying, like just posting something to post. You're deriving from a place of here's the emotion I feel. And I think that's always going to resonate more with people. It's I'm having fun on Halloween with my family. I got silly and I dressed up with a costume. Like they're very emotion centered. And I think, especially like you're saying, for these end of the year topics and seasonality, that's huge. The gratitude, the feeling of like, oh, we're gathering the family and we want everyone around. That's the emotions you want to be playing on, especially I think as a loan officer, as a real estate agent. It's not about, hey, let's get you in a home before the end of the year. It's, hey, does your home feel a little like squished with everybody in there? Like, are you feeling like, I really want to host everyone, but I just can't. I don't have the room. Maybe that's a sign that we should talk about what you want for yourself and how I can help make that happen. And that may not be right away, it may not be by the end of the year, and it doesn't have to be, but let's talk about how you want to feel in your life and how I can help you achieve that. And I think if you
So
come at it
next year that
that
you
way,
can host everyone for Thanksgiving.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's not about pressure and the quick, like I think people are learning. We're tired of being sold to. We don't want to be forced into anything. But if you can kind of highlight the pain points people are feeling of, oh yeah, I really do wish I could host everyone. Oh yeah, I do live kind of far away from my family and have to trek out every single holiday, and it would be nice to maybe move closer. I just don't know how to do that. Well, guess what? You're the one who gets to say that and say, hey, I'm here for you and I can help you with that. And I think especially if you're being vulnerable and sharing your own experiences, saying, oh, I talked to a client who had that same problem. They were 2 states away and every holiday was a whole hassle. And instead we found them a new property and this is where it was. And now they called me up to say, it's so great. Every Christmas now we're around, or every Hanukkah we're around, like whatever it is. It's just very cool. And so I think if you're focused on your social content with that in mind, with either adding value or addressing emotion or having something to say beyond just like, I'm acknowledging a holiday, think about what is behind the seasonality and then share content around that. And I think that will help. I feel like that helps people when I really help them shift that mindset. They're always like, oh, I see what you're saying. That's really different. But it doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just stories. It's just telling stories.
Speaking of stories, Netflix just dropped a new feature that
I knew you'd be excited about this.
I'm really wanting to talk about, which
Okay.
why don't you mention it? Because you're the one who told me about it.
I did. Well, I was
ooh.
excited. So for those who don't know, Brandon is like the movie guru, hence the costume here, right? So I'm a book fan. Brandon's a movie fan. And so when I saw this, I immediately was like, who's going to be excited about this? Brandon, because it intersects social media and movies. So basically Netflix is testing out a feature where you'd be able to clip pieces of movies and TV shows and share them to social media really easily. And I think what they're doing is they've noticed that this happens anyway. People will do this. They'll just screen record something and share it. And then Netflix loses out on that conversion because people are like, oh, what's this from? And where is this? And where'd you get it? So Netflix is like, okay, we're going to do it ourselves and let you just take that moment, that clip from whatever you're watching, share it. And then it has a link that directs you back to Netflix. So in essence, it's a smart marketing move on their part because they're just recapturing that kind of call to action, getting people to redirect back to their platform and know A, what you're watching, and B, where to find it, which is Netflix. But for social media, I think this is actually really, really cool because it can make it so much easier to loop in pop culture and be able to say, oh, this clip of what I'm watching, or make memes out of it, or do whatever with that clipping feature. So I'm really excited to see how it actually works out. But I just thought that was a fun thing worth sharing, especially with Halloween memes, like all of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about like, what do we want to put for our Halloween social posts? And we'd initially come up with a couple of things that were like, or you had come up with some things that you had created as a way to kind of like safeguard us against any like copyright stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think that we're okay. And I think that what's interesting is that Netflix is also kind of extending that olive branch to marketers and saying, look, use our stuff. We want you to talk about our stuff and not feel like we're going to hunt you down for wanting to leverage some of our content in your marketing. Just kind of give us a shout out by using this little clip. So
I think that's a big shift in social media over the last few years, actually, because I feel like it used to be very, like you said, copyright heavy, very, this is my idea and my property. And if you're copying it or stealing it, like, I'm going to come after you. And instead, I think it's shifted to this social kind of connected atmosphere of being like, oh, well, wait, I actually benefit if my trend goes viral, or if you're using me in something that often comes back to the bigger companies and comes back to me because of what you're doing. So I think now it's obviously if you're taking clips and putting them in like paid ads and making money directly off that without there being anything agreed upon with Netflix or whatever, that's something I would definitely advise against with copyright, right? Don't run paid things. But for organic social, I think they're learning, like you said, it's like, well, if I can attach my link and get people, it's kind of like free advertising, right? It's free. You're distributing the content for me, and then I'm getting results and clicks and views because of that. So I agree with you. I think this is going to be a really cool feature. And I'm wondering, especially with how popular we know that video is and these CapCut templates, right, where it's memes and video clips and all of that, I'm just really wondering how this could maybe start to change that landscape of making video a bit more accessible, but through the commercial videos and movies and TV shows that we all like, and making that easier to share. And like you're saying, encourage that sharing.
I definitely think it's going to be an interesting shift, and I'm interested to see how the platforms shift
Mm-hmm.
because, for example, like TikTok will mute sounds or mute your audio if it feels like you have copied it from something,
Mm-hmm.
which is why if anyone has like seen a movie clip from on TikTok or on Reels, a lot of times they're either sped up or slowed down just slightly or pitched up the audio so that it sounds a little bit different. Um, but yeah, I'm very interested to see how this impacts and what the use cases are. How easy is it to use? How simply can I bring it in? Can I can I add stickers to it? Can I add text to it? Or is it just the clip and I can only show the clip? Um, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
so interested, especially as a content creator myself who talks a lot about film, to see
Mm-hmm.
how these little clips play out. I'm very, very
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah, I'm interested too because the other piece of news that I learned this week is that I don't know if you saw this. Instagram admitted that they downgrade the quality of videos sometimes on their platform. So like if it's a popular video that's getting a lot of views, they'll use like a higher quality footage for that and render it in a higher quality. But then sometimes what they'll do with lower performing videos is they'll initially render it well and see how it does, but then if engagement starts to drop off, they actually switch it to a lower quality version. And then if it starts to get more attention again, they'll re-render it back into that high quality. And to me, I'm like this, I don't know, I think it sounds worse than it is. Like to me, I'm like, that kind of makes sense. They have to save space. Like if you have bad Wi-Fi, you're gonna see bad videos anyway. But it was really interesting to hear people be like, they what? I'm like, well, this makes sense to me because
Yeah,
there's
they're
not.
just trying to direct their resources in the right spot.
Right. But what's interesting is if we get this influx of movie clips and things like that, I'm just like, how is that going to work with space and rendering and all the capabilities? Like, is that something that we're going to see Netflix be like, hey, you better make sure our stuff is high quality because you're not making our camera work look bad? Like, that would be, I don't know. I don't know if they'll really have a say in it, but it's interesting. I wonder how they're building this out in a way that's going to interact.
Yeah. No, this is certainly going to be interesting, and I'm as a content creator, I'm excited to see how the platforms react to it. Let's talk. We've got about 8 minutes left. Again, if anyone has a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. We'd love to um, answer those for you. Let's talk about thumbnails.
Mhm.
This is something that we don't talk about like a ton, but let's talk about the importance of thumbnails. I have found for myself now, each platform is like kind of different.
Mhm.
Now, I think that where thumbnails especially are like most important on a platform like YouTube, where you're choosing from a list of videos and you kind of have to decide off of the thumbnail if this video is something that you're interested in watching.
Mhm.
What makes short form video a little bit more unique is that your thumbnail uh doesn't really get seen unless someone comes from your profile. That's kind of what, or in search. And so I think some people just kind of like brush off the thumbnail. They're like, no one sees this. When in reality, I use thumbnails all the time for creators that I follow when I go,
Yeah.
I know that they talked about this thing. Let
Mhm.
me go see if I can find it, and I will scroll through their page, and I will look through their
Yes.
thumbnails to give me the thing that I'm looking for. And if you
Yes.
are a mortgage content creator, if you are talking about mortgage content, you're talking about the mortgage industry, you're talking about all those different things, you're going to want to have thumbnails so that as people
Yes.
are swiping through your content, they will say, "Oh, this person, they're talking about FHA and like 5 things that you should know before you apply. This is what I'm looking for." And you watch that
Mhm.
video.
So quickly, just to clarify for anyone watching who doesn't know what a thumbnail is like the freeze frame that shows from your video, like Brandon's saying, like on your profile. And so what we're saying with the thumbnails is I always advise adding a title or text on top of your thumbnail, like you said, explaining what the video is. Because I think you'll even see in your own feed, right? If you go back to scroll and there are no titles, it's just still images of you talking over and over and over, you don't know what each video is about. And so it makes it very difficult to then go back to your own content and say, oh, what was this one about? Like, you have to manually watch every video. So not only for you, but also for your followers, it's so helpful to have a quick title on that video. And I think why we like to emphasize how important this is A, like you're saying, it makes it easy to retroactively go back and have your content get more attention. If people find your most recent video and go, oh, that was interesting, go back to your profile and then scroll and then say, oh, actually, I want to learn more about down payment assistance, or, oh, what is this FHA program that they're talking about? I'm curious. They'll click into other videos. Whereas if they're just seeing a wall of the same face over and over, it's going to look overwhelming and they're like, I don't know what to click into or what. But I think this step gets overlooked a lot, especially for people who are newer to social media, because it's kind of hidden in those settings. When you're going through to post a video, it's an easy step to overlook, because a lot of the time it's on the little like thumbnail that they generate of your video before you post, right? So you have to click on it and say like edit cover or edit, the feed grid and what it looks like. So what I would say is if you take the time to do that, you're going to see a big impact. And the other way to make that easy is if the first frame of your video is a thumbnail, which is something we do automatically with Video Catalyst. So we make the first frame of your video something with text on it. So that is your thumbnail. So you don't have to worry about it when it's automatically posting, that is automatically shown. But if you're manually posting all of your videos and content, that's just a step that we always advise, is making sure you have a thumbnail with text to identify what your video is about. And you'll see that that really helps even your past videos and whatever's going on get more attention and more engagement.
We have a question here from Amy asking about how important are those cover pictures, those thumbnails on Instagram, saying that she always wants hers to look aesthetic. And I say that it generally comes down to, what is your brand? Is your brand something that is extremely aesthetic, or is it something that, look, I get the information out, I'm a little bit more laid back, I'm a little bit, I'm not as like, meticulous about, speaking for myself here, I'm not as meticulous about the aesthetic, but I have kind of like, I use the same text, I use the same like box on my thumbnails. All my thumbnails look the same, but the images don't like relate to each other, if that makes sense. I try and pick an image though that does make it clear what that video is about. And then I make sure that my thumbnail is accurate and covers the topic well. So,
I would say
so
that's
I'm not,
pretty much
yeah.
what I would say too, is like, I would make it all try to look cohesive. That doesn't mean perfect, right? It doesn't mean it all has to be the exact same every time. But like, if you alternate between a few colors, like pick 3 colors max, say it's like black, white, and green. Those are your 3 colors. All of your thumbnails should be in one of those colors. And you can alternate, and they could denote different topics. Like, let's say any money tips or finance tips are in green, and then any white text ones are like personal fun ones, and then any black ones are like market updates. That's a really great way to visually denote to your audience that these videos are different topics, but they're still going to recognize the colors. If that's too complicated, don't worry about it. I usually like to stick to one color or alternate between a few, because what I think it does is visually, it makes it really easy when people are scrolling and they notice, oh, blue captions, what's going on? But if your captions are always blue, they might start to associate, oh, I always see Amy's videos with blue captions. So when I see blue captions, I'm going to stop and go, oh, is it Amy? And if it's not, okay, scroll. But if it is, maybe I'm more likely to stick around because I recognize it. So with your thumbnails, like you're saying, I don't think the aesthetics are the most important. I would just say, like, trying to make them look cohesive so people can recognize, oh, this is Amy's videos. They tend to look like this. And then, like you said, with the photos or the stills, I just like them to look engaging. Like, that's the biggest thing. I don't love when people come up with the really fancy graphic covers. I think sometimes those are interesting if you're a really big account and you have someone who like makes a new thumbnail for every single video. But I honestly just like any interesting still from the video itself that feels more authentic to me than like photoshopping something with a bunch of stuff on top. It's like, I just want to know what the video is about, and I just want to know what I'm getting in the video. So if you make the thumbnail super graphic and illustrated based and whatever, and then I click into it and it's just you talking at your desk, it's gonna feel like, oh, that was a lot of effort.
Bait and switch. Yeah.
Right. It feels like, oh, I'm expecting this over the top video, like maybe a skit or like a funny YouTube style something, but then I'm just getting a talking head. So I'm like, I kind of like the style of the thumbnail to match the vibe of the video so that when people watch it, they feel like they're getting what they expected. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, bait and switch is very dangerous when it comes to thumbnails. Like YouTube, it's a pandemic. I mean, it's like
Oh, the clickbait is
everything on
insane.
YouTube is just clickbait. But if you are, like I kind of mentioned earlier, if you have something in your thumbnail, like deliver on that promise, because a lot of times that thumbnail is the thing that got that person to tap that video. And if you can't deliver on the promise of your thumbnail, you're probably not going to get another view from that person that trusted you on that clip.
Mhm.
So, all right, well, we are at time here. Any final thoughts? What are you going to be for Halloween?
Nothing much. My roommate and I are gonna get dressed
Clearly.
up. Go out tonight. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know. Well, okay, I'm gonna be a vampire, so all I'm really doing is just like putting the little teeth in, and I did not want to have to talk through them all day. I have client calls after this, and I'm like, no way, I'm not, just showing up with like vampire teeth and that's it.
Sure.
But I'm sorry. Next Halloween, I will show up for you. I have Spider-Man in the closet or something that I could pull out. But yeah, no, just hanging out with a roommate, doing something fun. How about you? I know you and the family are doing trick or treating, I believe.
Yeah, we're taking the kids trick or treating with their friends, and they're going around and getting me some peanut butter cups.
Oh,
Yeah.
the best candy. Okay, that's one thing I want to know if anyone's watching. Best Halloween candy before we log off, because mine is absolutely Reese's peanut butter cups. That is hands down.
It's Reese's and Kit Kats are the two elite
Oh,
candies.
so have you been a fan of the commercials where they're like, "Why choose?" and it's like the girl dressed up as like split half and half, and then the woman at the door is like, "I guess you need to have both," and then the other two kids who were in normal costumes were like, "What the heck?" Like, I thought that was
I
really interesting.
haven't seen that.
Oh, okay. Well, you have to look it up. I feel like Kit Kat and Reese's are doing like a joint marketing thing of like, why choose? And I'm like, interesting.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
those are the two most elite candies in my opinion.
that's
But
fair. Trying to think of my second. Okay, you know what the worst is though? My least favorite Halloween candy is Whoppers. They're disgusting.
Whoppers, Whoppers are gross. Whoppers and Tootsie Rolls.
Gross.
If
Oh yeah.
unfortunately, this is what happens is that Whoppers just find their way into like I think they're in that Kit Kat Reese's bag.
Yes, don't like the mixes. I'm like, why? No one
It's
likes
like
it.
Kit Kat, Reese's, Crunch, Hershey's, and Whoppers.
Yeah.
And look, I love a good little mini Hershey's bar. They're perfect because my favorite food is s'mores, and I make s'mores every Wednesday while I watch Survivor.
Oh,
And
amazing.
I've got like a little s'mores campfire that just
Oh
like
my god.
sits on my table with like this like little like fuel that you put in there, and like I just roast marshmallows and make
Oh,
s'mores
like
every
a
week.
tabletop fireplace kind of?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Cute.
And those are perfect. Just slap one of those puppies on there
Wow.
and stick it
Okay,
in.
well,
So
A, I've learned something new about you, and B, I feel like I want to come over one Wednesday and have s'mores and watch
there you
Survivor.
go. Survivor and s'mores.
You, me, Crosby, and the kids. It'll be fun. Oh my
That's right.
gosh, that's a fun one. Okay, well, I hope everyone has a great Halloween. Everyone be safe. I hope trick or treating's super fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the posts of families, family costumes, what people are up to this evening. I think it's gonna be really fun just to see that.
Okay. Happy Halloween, everyone. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks,
See you next
everyone.
week.
Bye.